Thank you. Welcome to Take the Lead's book club discussion. I'm Michele Weldon. I'm editorial director at Take the Lead. I'm an author emerita faculty at Northwestern and senior leader with the Op-Ed Project. Tonight, we're discussing telling the truth. We're going to take the last 15 minutes for questions. So if you can hold on for that and enter your questions in the chat, that would be awesome. I'm so honored and grateful to be here with Leslie Jane Seymour, media entrepreneur and founder of Covey Club, former editor-in-chief of More Magazine, the leading lifestyle magazine for women over 40 with a readership of 1.5 million. She was also the editor-in-chief and social media director of More.com, which attracted over 12 million monthly page views and 600,000 unique visitors. Before taking over More, Leslie served as the editor-in-chief of Marie Claire, Redbook, YM, and beauty director of Glamour, and copywriter and senior editor at Vogue. Thanks so much for being here, Leslie.
Happy to be here. I'm glad you invited me.
Thank you, thank you. So should we jump right in?
Sure. Oh, hey, Kate, how are you? Hi, Gloria. Good to see you. Awesome.
Hi,
so
Gloria.
I'll just tell you all, for those of you, some of you know me. Jennifer, how are you? Good to see you. Some of you don't. I'll just tell you very quickly about Covey. Covey is a group of birds. People are like, what does Covey mean? I don't know. Are you related to Stephen Covey? No, it is about a small nest of birds, just like this. I wanted something small and intimate, mainly because I found when my kids left home and I was thinking about what was I going to do next, especially after the fourth magazine I ran folded. Not everyone folded, just this last one. I didn't want to go back to magazines, but I loved the feeling that magazines created. And I was like, we were right at that cusp of, this is 4 years ago. And I thought, you know, print is dead. How do you take that feeling and make it come alive? And what was great is many of my readers were very angry about the magazine folding. And so they said, do something else for us. And I was in the process of getting my master's degree in sustainability up at Columbia. And I thought, okay, well, you know, I always talked about being an entrepreneur someday. So let me see if I can do this. And hilariously would sit there at my dining room table going, okay, should I be studying violence against women in Congo, or should I be learning MailChimp? You know, like these were the two things I had to do at the same time. And I had a survey that I asked my readers to fill out, and 627 of them filled out a 54-question survey. And anybody here who knows anything about research, people won't fill out three questions. So these people really were very generous and really wanted this. And I literally made a map from that. And we launched 3 years ago. It will be our third birthday on February 14th of next year. And we've been, you know, moving around, and we've been like throwing things at the wall, and some things work and some things don't. And you feel bad when the things don't work, but then there are things that do work. And we've created this fabulous community, and we have content, we have written content, we have events like this, we have live events, which I'm really looking forward to getting back to. Hopefully, maybe we will be able to do this next November for sure. We have a big spa trip planned. I'm going to bring everybody down to New Orleans too. Everybody wants to come down here, where I just reinvented myself after being in the suburbs of New York for 40 years. And so I'm just thrilled to be here. And thank you, Jennifer Witter, who's an old friend, and also Gloria for thinking of me for this. So anyway, we are here to celebrate Michele, and she's got her wonderful book, Act Like You're Having a Good Time, which I think we can actually always have a good time. We really can. So Michele, why don't you talk a little bit about that title?
Thanks, Leslie. Yeah, it's very corny. My father used to say that to all six of us. There's six of us in a little over 7 years growing up. And if we ever dared say we did not want to do a chore or we disagreed with the task, there was no opting out. My father would just say, well, just act like you're having a good time then. So it wasn't about, a lot of people say, well, that's fake it till you make it. But it wasn't really about that. It was about understanding your responsibility and that you're accountable and that you might as well make the best of every moment possible. And that's not a bad way to live your life. It sounds really simplistic, but and it's not really acting, it's trying to find the blessings in every opportunity. And I think that's really an important thing right now, as we're in this really chaotic and awful moment in our culture and in our time, to try and find the good and to endeavor some self-discovery that might be enlightening for yourself.
And I think we have that opportunity now. Weirdly, do you feel that now that we've slowed down? I feel that I think a lot of people have found parts of their lives and parts of themselves they may have felt they lost before.
I feel like that, Leslie. I feel like there's this paradox of less time and more time. Here I am in my home office. Two of my three grown sons have moved home. So, and they're working from here, and it's a little bit like we work.
Yeah, with your kids. Right.
Stop shouting at each other right now, I'm working. But I can spend 10, 12 hours a day in this room. I don't commute anymore. I don't take time for lunch. I don't go out. I don't, I'm not in the world. So I feel like time is warped and contorted into what we can make it. But that's also a really great opportunity to then carve time for things that you find important, and to really create different opportunities for yourself and discover what you like to do and want to do.
Yeah, I like that a lot. So let's talk about my work highlights the necessity of women forming community through friendships and networking. Tell us about what you have discovered about friendships with different generations of women and how that informs your life. Because we don't all want to hang out with people our age only, right?
Right. Well, I see a lot of my really close friends here. Hi, Kristen. Hi, Lisa. Hi, Alyssa, Teresa. And there's Lisa holding up a book. I have found in the past several years that having different generations of friends is really helpful and enlightening, if nothing more than just like you really should buy new shoes, or you really need a different coat. I did an unusual thing a few years ago. I started doing amateur roller derby, and I did that for 6 years. I have the best group of derby girlfriends who are 30 years younger than I am. And we meet regularly. And by the way, my derby name is Mish the Masher. And it just is something that I Mish the Masher. Everybody has a derby name. And it's just something that is so outside of anything I would do professionally. And so I've met all these great women, and I don't have history with them. I mean, I do now, but it forms a different kind of informing of your life. So I have, friends that I've been friends with for 30 years, like Lisa and Kristen, who are on this call, and who, we raised our children together. We know so much about each other. That is one kind of magic. And then there's work friends like Teresa I've been working with for 10 years, and other people on this call. And that's a different kind of friendship and alliance. And I think if you can weave into your life this mosaic of different groups of women friends, it really enhances your life. And I find that it's been just really helpful professionally, personally, and wardrobely.
Wardrobely important. Yes. And my daughter's due to come down in 2 days, and she will go through my thing and go, why do you have this? I wouldn't wear this. And I'm like, well, you don't have to. It's mine. So please stop degrading it, because I was very happy with it until you told me how awful it was. And then, of course, what I find is that, she's wearing it, a couple days later. And it really was about, you shouldn't wear this, I should have it. But I do agree. And I think and that was for me the best thing about going back to Columbia, when I was 60, was hanging with everybody in their 20s and 30s. And it was wonderful. That's where I wouldn't have been able to launch Covey Club, because believe it or not, my training in tech in publishing was so poor that I learned everything I needed to know just taking courses at Columbia, learned more tech there than from our publishing, unfortunately. So let's talk a little bit about journalism and how that impacts your career. I started as a journalist. I've always been a journalist. When I put that on my Instagram page, there are people who come in and denigrate that today. But how did your journalism career start?
That's another really, really corny story. And a lot of my friends know this one already. I had my own newspaper when I was 10. It was called the Juvenile Journal. And it was a monthly, it was mimeographed. I typed it up. It was a newsletter of like 2 to 4 pages. I had a hectograph machine in the family room that I copied the pages on.
Is that
Well,
a
that's old time.
mimeograph?
That was before Xerox. It was the gel, and you stuck
Not a
the carb.
mimeograph? Not a
No,
mimeograph.
it was
Hectograph?
gel, and you stuck the carbon onto it and pulled the carbon off. Yeah, and
Okay.
then they smelled. So then you smelled them, and then
Still got
anyway.
the smell. Everybody, anybody here who knew mimeograph? Did you know remember the smell of mimeograph? Okay, all right. That just dated me, but that's all right. Go ahead.
So it was just fascinating stories about my family, and I did fashion, and when my family went on vacation, I wrote about all the restaurants we went to, and my brothers who may have been in a talent show. I mean, it was just earth-shattering news. And I had about 50 subscribers who paid 50 cents a year for 12 issues because I had no concept of money. But that was a paywall. I was not going to give away my content for free. And I did it for about 2 years till I was 12. And I said to my father, I'm doing really, really well in this publishing encounter. And he looked at me and said, actually, you're not. You've never paid for postage or paper or that hectograph machine. You're actually not doing that well, but good for you. And then just in high school and college, I continued with journalism. I went to Northwestern undergrad and grad, was an editor at the campus paper. I wrote my first story for a magazine when I was 17 for 17.
Oh, you did?
Yeah,
Oh,
I did.
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
That was
and
my first places I wrote for also.
that's right. So it's just something I always wanted to do and be. And, I spent the first 10 years of my career in newsrooms, in magazines and newspapers, and then in teaching journalism at Northwestern. And then I've been, for the last 5 years, editorial director at Take the Lead, thanks to Gloria, and building another great group of women and networking and having great momentum there. And, this been writing nonfiction books since 1999. So
I wish I'd known you when I was 10, because at 10 I was writing books about my parakeet, but I had no one to publish it. So see, if we'd had this technology, you and I would have met and I would have been published back then. So you would have been my publisher. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the need for women to tell the truth, especially in media, as well as in books and other forms of storytelling. And that, I'll tell you, that is really one of the things that we brought to Covey. I mean, first of all, Michele, you're such a Covey woman. You have to come join us. I mean, it's hilarious. All that stuff, being a roller derby person and doing journalism on the side. It is so, I mean, what's hysterical is when I meet people like you, like we're all drawn to each other for some reason. I have no idea why, but we are. That's the same kind of thing. But one of the most important things, and I think right now too, is telling our truths and telling the honest truth and not wrapping it up. That's one of the things that I did at More that was so unique, is a lot of the women's magazines, they felt they had to wrap everything up in a nice bow. And I laugh about it because this is how we were as editors. We'd be, and it would be like, okay, who do we have? But there was always a tragedy story. And it was like, okay, face ripped off girl, we have her for this month. Who's, all these different tragic stories. But the women's books always required that in the end, she, everything was perfect. She got her face put back on. She looked like a princess and she married the man and ran off. With More, we left it in the gray zone because it's not how life is. It might've been about the struggle and it might've been different, but she might've learned something. Is that how you tell your truth?
Sure. And, I really appreciate that. And, I also was a huge fan of More, and I even wrote for more.com. You probably didn't know that. But I always felt like all the other stories about women were basically about appearance and framing you in terms of your sexuality and attractiveness, and framed through what man wanted you, and that determined your worth. So I really feel it is so important now that we embrace the truths of all women, and the stories, so we get a sense of what is real, and
Mhm.
what is necessary, and what work we need to do, together or separately, and to understand each other's challenges and struggles, not wrapped up in an Instagram bow,
Right.
as influencers who everybody looks so great, on the hotel balcony. Because I think then it erodes at our sense of self if we see, like, well, why am I not good enough for that? Or, really, you got all that done, and what? So it begins to chip away at our sense of identity. And that's why I feel it is so important to tell the truths, no matter how gorgeous and ugly they are,
Right.
and to have the gracious tolerance for each other's stories. And
Yeah.
the movements of Me Too have helped that, to bring about truth regardless of shame or shadow, and just celebrate truth, is what I
Mhm.
feel is super important.
I agree. Totally, absolutely agree. And I'll tell you, our best read piece on Covey came from a friend who was struggling with her older mother who was getting Alzheimer's, and she hated taking care of her mother. And I heard from a girlfriend who's a psychologist that that was a major issue. Everybody's coming into psychotherapy and saying how depressed they are, that they have to deal with this, and they're ashamed that they're depressed. So she wrote this anonymously, and we just keep posting it. And because it's telling the truth of she hates taking care of her mother. She does it, but her mother's mean. And how does she go through all this? So let's talk about women over 40. The More audience was obviously women over 40, um, maybe over 50. And Covey Club is the same, and people want their content geared to them. How does your book touch on issues of age?
Well, I'm 62, and these topics in the book touch on issues women my age and older and a little younger deal with, like invisibility and ageism, and feeling that you're not enough. This is the third chapter of my life, the arc before the denouement. And have to get real about that, and what is the meaning in what I do, and how do I appear in the world, and am I enough, and how am I judged? So there's all of that, and then there are lighter moments. I wanted to read from this one chapter called Dress Code. It's about fashion and feeling too old.
Okay, go for it.
Wearing an above-the-knee floral dress, I emerged from the dressing room in a wood and glass boutique store that smelled of lavender and the kind of candles forever flickering in spas, and asked the sales associate, "Am I too old for this dress?" It wasn't super short, just in that in-between space where you would ask yourself, and maybe text a close friend with a photo, if styled correctly, it was professional enough for a presentation. But I was alone and in a strange city, dawdling in the shop after dinner, and I have a bad habit when I'm alone and out of town of buying clothes that don't quite fit into the rest of my life. I
Mhm.
have the floppy hats to prove it. "Well, how old are you?" she asked earnestly, even pensive. 55, I replied. She seemed visibly shaken, her honest reaction to an abomination, as if I had just confessed to a gruesome crime years earlier and whispered to her where the evidence was buried. "Oh, no. Oh, you just can't," she said, and shook her head. back and forth violently as if to signal that she would tell no one anywhere, anytime, even if I pressed, that I had changed the rules of polite society and tried it on. Her stern rebuke implied I should take the dress off quickly and exit the store as soon as possible without even so much as a glance at the accessories counter. So I did. I am surprised now that I was so easily dissuaded. Yeah, so that's a little bit about the shame that we have. And
Yeah.
then, sometimes we put the dress back and sometimes we buy it anyway and wear it all the time.
Yeah. Well, can I curse on here?
Yeah, sure.
Oh, the fuck you dress. It's like you get to a certain point and you're like, I don't care, I'm doing it. So reinvention is the theme at Covey Club. Have you reinvented yourself, and how? And what are you discovering about the meaning and purpose of reinvention?
Yeah, well, sometimes reinvention happens to you and sometimes it's by choice, right? So, at 62, I'm single and been single for a while. I've been, divorced since my boys were 6, 4, and 1, and they are now 32.
Wow.
I have to think of how old they are, 32, 29, and 26, with birthdays coming up.
Awesome.
And, I've had relationships in between, but reinventing what that means, to be a woman alone, especially at this time, and what that means for possibilities for the future. And, my work has been reinvented in different venues, even though I've consistently been a journalist and an author and a storyteller. So I feel like, reinvention is trimmed a little bit because of COVID. I mean, I can't travel, can't do the things that I really want to do, but it also, reinvention is kind of a mindset about what I feel is possible and what is purposeful. I try to only do work that I find meaningful and purposeful and that has, an end game of a higher mission, which is what I do with Take the Lead and what I do with the op-ed project. So I feel that might be different than, what I did early when I was, chasing paychecks to pay for a family of 4 and to cover the mortgage and, to cover college tuitions and all of that. So now it's more like, what do I find important and purposeful is what I pursue.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are pursuing some kind of good feeling or give back in their reinvention somehow. That's the goal. And the good news is, I'll tell you, I have a podcast which is called Reinvent Yourself. We've done over 100 interviews. I think we're about 110 now. And the answer is, you can do it. Doesn't matter where you come from, doesn't matter how much money you have, doesn't matter your background. If you have the will, there's a way. And it could be reinventing your body or reinventing your marriage, or it doesn't even have to be just a career, but you can change your life. And that's a wonderful bit of knowledge. People have done it, and they can do it with a lot less than, and it encourages me whenever I sit there and go, oh, it's me, I've got this, that. When you see other people who have less or who don't have, the background you have, and you can do it. So let's talk about entrepreneurs and finding solutions and offering support. That's a lot of what we do at Covey. Because reinvention, we know a lot of people are, as you say, going to be forced to reinvent. And a lot of women, because of ageism, sexism, the combo, are forced out of corporate now. And as we see, the 25% of women that are being pushed out permanently because of childcare and balancing elder care and all that. You talk a lot about ambition and feeling as if you're enough. What message did you want to deliver? And I think that it's interesting, there's a dichotomy. I hear a lot of women who are worried that they're not enough. And then I hear a lot of women as they get older who've been told all along that they were too much. It's this weird, it's like, you know what? It's Goldilocks. Whatever it is, it ain't right, Right?
I think if I had a dime for everybody who said to me, you're a lot.
You're a lot.
Right? Like, you're a little too much, or you have a big personality. Yeah, I really think I had huge dreams for myself. It also, I mean, blame is something. My parents were so encouraging of us And it was like, yes, you can do that. Of course you could do that. Try and do that. I mean, they praised us, and they, while telling us, of course you have to do what you're told to do. But my dreams didn't happen. I thought I would be a huge Pulitzer Prize winning journalist, somewhere writing for the New York Times. While I've written for the New York Times, I'm not on staff. I did not achieve those dreams that many of my very good friends have. And I think you have to come to grips with those big ambitions were probably not ever going to happen, right? And that it's okay. Mm-hmm. So I think coming, with self-discovery, trying to decide that you are enough as I am trying to be purposeful and to have impact and doing my best work, that it's okay, that it's enough, that, those enormous dreams I had that are probably sort of laughable, actually, because how many people, do achieve that? Right. Having, 25 bestsellers and, everything was going to be perfect. It's like, it's okay. And I think that's also coincides with telling each other our truths, right? Telling each other that, I dreamed kind of big too, and that didn't happen to me, but I'm okay. And I'm okay because this is what I've accomplished, and this is what I intend, and this is how I live my life.
And yet, what you've accomplished, let's be really honest, you're way up here. It's just not what you were thinking of over there, but it's not like you're way down here. You're like, there's a lot of people under here, Michele, looking up going like, holy crap, I couldn't do what she did. So you're extremely accomplished.
Well, thank you. Thank you. And back at you. And a lot of that has to do with privilege, and a lot of that has to do with being a white educated woman of privilege in the middle class, that I don't have certain struggles, and my parents paid for college and grad school, and I certain things happened to me that were automatic. So so being cognizant of that, and also trying to realize that I can shoot for things. I'm not being dismissive of my ambition or intentions, but I'm saying it's okay to dial it back.
Okay. For centuries, women have been grappling with the challenges of getting it all done and accomplished. And it's been framed for at least a generation as balancing. And when I was at Red Book, we called it, made me gag, the juggler. Do you remember this? It's the juggler. I was like, what am I, in a circus? You have a take you call swapping. Can you talk about that?
Sure. I'm like you, Leslie. I always hated that. You have so many plates in the air. Well, that image is about really kinetic, and the plates are twirling, right? You don't kind of have control over them. They're doing that, and something will always crash to the ground. And I felt like that was the great big lie told to women. It's like, achieve work-life balance. I'm like, really? How's that going to happen? I was a single parent, sole custody, sole support since my boys were 6, 4, and 1, working full time. The phone would ring at 6:30, and I knew it would be the babysitter canceling. It's like, if I don't answer, will she come? I mean, there are things like, and then having to bring them, to Northwestern with me on Casimir Pulaski Day. And it's like, sit in the back, don't say anything. I always thought, like, the way I look at it is swapping these obligations, right? And that's self-forgiveness. It's like, I will do my best, and the time allowed, there's 24 hours today, right? I'm either going to attend the parent-teacher conference or write another story, to make my editor love me. But I can't do both because I can't be up all night. So I feel like, you can forgive yourself and just swap these necessities and understand that everything is necessary, but some things take priority. I mean, you have to take care of your mother or father, or take them to the doctor when they need to go. You have to, figure out when your child is sick. You can't say, oh, well, I got a big meeting. there are things that you have to do, and understanding that you will do your best and answer the need that is the top priority, and not feeling that it is something that must fall to the ground. It's like, no, I'm choosing to do that. I'm swapping this for that. It seems to me like a much cleaner way to look at it, and there's no crashed plates on the ground, no juggling involved. It's just smoother.
So question for you, do you think it's going to, this whole COVID realignment is going to change that for women? I'm hoping it will. I'm hoping that people are not going to be going back full time the way we were, not commuting 2 hours, not, I'm hoping that we're going to find more balance. Do you have any sense of that? Like,
Well, I feel like women are driving what's going to be the recovery after COVID. If we have as much influence and power to change things as we intend to, I feel like a lot of things are different because of that. A lot of things have been eliminated, like the mandatory in-person meetings and the things that you had to get a babysitter for. It's like, no, you have to come to this happy hour at 6 o'clock. It's like, well,
right,
darn, the sitter leaves at 5. So
right.
I think, we can call a lot of those shots and say, no, that's not convenient. So I think this whole shift to remote has, while it has been catastrophic for women as far as childcare goes and homeschooling and all that remote learning and everything, it also may reinvent how we define the workplace, literally and figuratively, and what our responsibilities are. And it wouldn't be so bad if, there was equal sharing of remote learning between parents. And but that, I'm hopeful that might happen.
I'm really hopeful. I think it's going to change a lot. I do, because I don't think people want to go back to the rat wheel that we were on like that. They just have realized there's a lot that's unnecessary. So let's talk about reinvention. For a lot of us, is moving out of homes where we raise our families, or downsizing after a divorce, or just simplifying. In your book, you write about the roots you grew in your house where you raised your 3 sons. Can you read from that chapter?
Yes, thank you. The house that has lost significant value since COVID.
Where is that, Michele?
I'm in the suburbs of Chicago and River Forest, Illinois. All these photos framed on every surface: the baptisms, the first communions, the confirmations, any and all of the sacraments. Brendan receiving his university diploma, Weldon, Colin too, and the weddings of friends and family where I'm smiling, sometimes happy, sometimes just going through the motions. The stage photos by the fireplace that took maybe 15 shots to get right. The family parties, the vacations when they were little, and when I sometimes wish there was another adult just to carry the bags. Here is this life. Here is where we spent the afternoons, the mornings, the late nights. We shared the dinners of favorite meals around the breakfast room table with the green chairs. I wiped the marinara sauce off the floor, the splatters off the wall near the stove. The times we were all in sync, caught on the same high wire act, and even if just for a split second, when all you see the same view and it's glorious. The times when unspeakably cruel things were said, some denied, most assumed forgotten. The broken promises, the shattered expectations, but sometimes, many sometimes, for a nanosecond, you collide in the same messy and delicious memory before each one splits into its own version of the Snapchat shot, and it is never the same view again at all.
So let's talk about your parents. First of all, I have to tell you, I had to relocate to New Orleans for that very reason. I had to leave my house to reinvent, because the house was a mausoleum to the children, and I could not reinvent, even though, because it just made me sad. Every single room and corner was theirs, So anyway, that's how I dealt with that. So talk about funny stories about your parents and traveling with them as a family. What lessons did they offer?
So there's a chapter in the book called The Electric Frying Pan. So, in the 60s and 70s, the 8 of us took, big trips every summer in, the Woody station wagon with all the luggage on top, and my father had a diagram of how the suitcases would go in. And my mother prepared so excellently. This is before Google. She would send away for reservations and for tickets and, learn all about the place we were going to. But everywhere we went, she had packed an electric frying pan and packed in a cooler, food for breakfast and lunch in the car. And every hotel room, no matter how fancy, she would make bacon and eggs for breakfast. Thank God there was no smoke alarm in the hotel rooms. But lessons like that, it was about being practical. And my mother would say, "Why would we get room service for 8 people? Do you know how much it costs?" And it was about preparing people that you love for what they might need. It was always about taking care of something one step ahead. So those are, it's not really about the electric frying pan. It's about anticipating what someone might need and showing that you care about them.
It's amazing. I think I made cucumber sandwiches for some road trip that my kids still bring up. We're like, those mushy, awful things you made us eat in the car. I'll never forgive you. Okay, so many of our community and women at this age talk about invisibility. You write honestly about your own struggles with that and how you have a need for applause for an affirmation. So talk about that.
Right. I literally do feel like I need applause. I do a lot of keynotes and I do live storytelling in Chicago and, on stage, and I've given TEDx talks, and it really fills me up, like probably more than it should, right? I get so much gratification from that. And then I think about that in terms of why is that? Am I not okay before the applause? And I feel like, there's something in there that I'm measured by my outcome, and I'm measured by, the rapidity of the applause and whether or not people like me. It's kind of like Sally Field accepting her Academy Award. You like me, you really like me. So what does that mean? And so I write about that, and I think that resonates with a lot of people. And that story also goes back to something my mother said to me when a bully said to me when I was about 6 years old by a swimming pool. She said, "Michele Weldon, you are just so full of yourself," and stormed off. And I was supposed to cry, but I was just confused. And then I said something to my mother about it later, and she said, "Well, honey, why in the world would you want to be empty of yourself?"
Ooh,
And
wow.
I thought, that's a t-shirt, right? Mom, yeah, right. So, yeah, and I think that's something I need to remind myself, that I'm okay if I don't stand on the stage and have someone applaud, that it's okay to be authentic and to be who you are, and to try your best.
Did you ever consider acting? Were you an actor in any way?
No.
No?
No, I had one line in Oliver in high school, and that was, I think it was hot sausage and mustard. See, I remember. Yeah, I was a boy in Oliver. Yeah, in the food scene. Yeah. No, I was terrible.
Okay. I always call magazine editing Hollywood for non-actors. It would give you a lot of visibility, but you never had to stand up there and actually do that kind of horrifying thing that I could never do. So let's talk about this time. It's obviously extremely tense. It's chaotic. We have the pandemic. We have racial strife. We have crisis. We have a non-ending election. We have,
Oh, it's not over? Really?
I don't think it could get any more crazy. We have hurricanes. I had a hurricane a month ago in my backyard, and wildfires, and all kinds of climate change. And so the question is, why does a book like yours that muses about personal issues and relevance even deserve a moment's thought?
Yes. So I've thought a lot about that, about, why even bother? And it's not just a distraction. I think goes back to, necessity of telling each other our stories and our truths. And I really bristle at the kinds of works that are like, 100 answers, to your life, clean out your basement, throw out all your junk and your life will be better. And boiling things down to, prescriptions. And because I don't find anything, quite that easy. And I felt like it's worthy of our time, and definitely was worthy of my time, to indulge in some self-discovery
Mm.
and trying to find, some peace and purpose and meaning and what I do and why, and hoping that doesn't come off as selfish and ridiculous and narcissistic, because I try to be honest, not intentionally self-deprecating, but definitely looking at, what I do and why, and how that might be helpful to someone else. To say, I worry about that too. And yeah, that's happened to me, because I think we find community and continuity in each other's stories. And I find that in reading a lot of other people's works, and it does give me comfort. It really does. And like, I'm not alone. It's
And
going to
you're
be
okay.
okay.
And that you're okay. That when what
Right.
the best part is finding out that you had the same thoughts that I did when we were 10, except that you were making yourself a publisher and I didn't know what to do with it. It's a revelation. It's like, okay, it's like we were all the same. We all have this shared experience. And that makes us feel okay, especially now when the world is so topsy-turvy. So
And I'm also finding on, doing a lot of book events, I'm finding a lot of people's mothers cooked in hotel rooms.
oh,
So,
really?
oh yeah.
You have
I
to
don't
write
know.
that
Raise your
story
hand.
for us. Okay. Maybe you can write that story for Covey. That's interesting. I didn't know that.
Right.
Well, it's like Schitt's Creek, right?
That's
You
right.
can add it to their discussion.
Right. So I'm wondering, Leslie, if maybe we should move to,
Want to go to questions? Because you got a lot.
sure, 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 sure.
Yeah, because I don't want to close us down without questions. We've got a lot more questions here, but what questions do you guys have for Michele? Do you want to pop up? You can either say me. How do you like to do it, Michele? Do you want to say have people just
Um,
jump in, or what do you like?
sure. I'm seeing a couple of questions here. I see one from Alyssa. How do you manage your time to be able to sustain the various relationships in your life so they can inspire you and give you energy? I found this challenging in general, and the pandemic has shifted that a bit because home all the time, but is still struggle for me. How do you do it? And Leslie, you can weigh in here too. I think it's really difficult and has to be scheduled. I have a dinner in Swati's heated garage, December 19th. A bunch of the Derby girls are getting together, socially distanced in her heated garage, in our parkas and our hats. You have to schedule it now because there is no spontaneity anymore. You don't run into anybody. I mean, I run into my sons all day, but that's it. So that's how I manage it. And, then I even have like Zoom meetings every 2 weeks with, close friends from college. I was in 40 years ago in college, and we Zoom. So it's more scheduled and less spontaneous, but I feel like you have to make time. But like I said, I don't commute anymore. I don't travel anymore. I used to travel 1 to 4 times a month, and I don't go out anymore. I don't buy
Yeah.
shoes anymore. There's all kinds of things I don't do. So I schedule that time. Other questions? If you have a new question, let me see if I'm following this okay.
Do you want to, at the very end, is our question where she says, tell us about your writing process. You are so prolific.
Oh, thanks, Arlene. Hi, Arlene. She's a good friend. I always say I write for love and money. I write to sustain a family of 4. I mean, that's how I put 3 sons through college and pay the mortgage. So there's also 2 kinds of writing that I do. There's writing that I do on deadline, and writing I do, as editorial director, for Gloria, and writing that I do in my essays and in my books. And that takes more time. That's an emotional and intellectually athletic. That I can't do that on deadline and just turn out, 5,000 words. That I write in layers, but I do write every day. And I try and take one full day in the week, and it might be Sunday, it might be Friday, but I try to take one full week where I'm writing my essays and working on books. And that is deeper and more involved, and it's less, I don't want to say rote, because I never want to be a formulaic writer, but I do write every day, and I also read a lot.
Alicia's asking, what was the first story you wrote for 7?
Oh, that's so funny. I remember it. Thanks,
You
Lisa.
do?
It was, I have it somewhere, but I've had so many floods and basements, who knows if it's still around. It was How to Wait in Line. Things to do while you're waiting in line.
Oh
And I
my
totally made it up. It was
Oh my
like,
God.
It's like, you can, I don't know, it's like you can file your nails. And it was really silly. You can read how to spend
Guess
the
what? We're
time.
still publishing that listicle today. You know that, right? It will still get today.
I'll try to find it, Leslie.
That's hilarious. That's very funny.
And how much do they pay you? Oh,
How
I
much do
think
they
it was
pay?
like a decent amount. It was like $150. So when I was 17, that was like 1970 something. I can't do that math. But I also wrote stories for the local paper when I was 12 and 13, like the weekly paper, and they paid $25. That was so much money. My friends had babysit for like 100 hours to make $25. And I would write an essay. So yeah, I think they're still paying $25. Yeah,
Alyssa says
right.
they're still paying that. I think they've gone back to paying that. I feel so guilty. That's what happened. That's what happened it was terrible in publishing, that the numbers started to slide backwards from $2.50 a word back to $1.50 back to $1. It was horrible, terrible. Barbara's saying, how did you decide what would make a good essay?
Thanks, Barbara, and hi. You know what good essays are because you write them as well. So I'm in a writing group. We meet every Wednesday. Arlene and Teresa are on here. We have 2 playwrights,
Wow.
and journalist, and a novelist in the group. And I don't know, it's like what strikes me, like what I encounter. And then I think, do I have anything really original to say about that? Am I bothered by it? Sometimes I write when I'm really angry. I did a piece for USA Today last month about Jeffrey Toobin, because I was mad, man. It's like, how can that man still have his job? And then he was fired afterwards. And I got so much gross, disgusting hate mail from that, as you can imagine, and one from an educator with his .edu address. So I contacted his department chair at Provost.
Good
Anyway,
for you, good girlfriend.
yeah. But it's a lot of different things. It's like, what do I have some special kind of insight on, and what can I bring to this that hasn't been said before? Because everything's been said before. Right. And a really great friend of ours in the writing group, Elizabeth Berg, once said to me, everything has been said before, but not by you. That's really good advice.
Well, that's what they said about Shakespeare, is that he's told all the great stories, so there's nothing left that's original. So just do your own thing. It's freeing. Once you realize you're not going to be William Shakespeare, it's okay. You can hone your own little area of the woods. What is your favorite essay from your new book, says Jennifer?
Oh, thanks, Jennifer. I think that first chapter on called Roots, I think that was my favorite because I think I worked on that the longest, several iterations, and that really is what made me decide to, put this together in a book. It's my first book of essays. I've written, 5 other books, all nonfiction. I've written 2 memoirs, but I've never had a collection of essays, and I just loved that one so much. And yeah, it still means quite a bit to me.
I'd love to know, what do you avoid writing about?
Things I
Like,
don't know about.
yeah, really just,
Yeah.
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 You
I
don't
mean,
go
there's
out
tons that I
research?
don't know about. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm not an expert really in much, I can consider myself an expert perhaps in media and observing popular culture and observing what life is like as a mature woman or a single parent or a cancer survivor or, domestic violence survivor. Those are things I know about, but I avoid writing things I don't know about because I think that is a disservice to the reader. I think that's false. And you'd be found out real fast that you don't know what you're talking about. And the inauthenticity would like destroy your career probably if you faked it, right? If you pretended. So I stay away from things I don't know about, which is a lot of things. Science is one of them. Math.
All right. Okay. All right. That's good enough. Um, any other questions?
That was Kate is from LaGrange. Yeah. That's funny. I wrote for years a weekly personal column in the Chicago Tribune. Thanks, Kate. And for about 15 years, and I avoided writing about my what was really happening in my life.
See,
I was
that's what
married.
I was getting at. That's what I was getting at, more like that.
Yeah, I was married to a man who was violent, and I'm writing all these essays. I'm laughing about it now because I was divorced in '96, but writing about my sons and what it's like, and I never wrote about him. And then I decided to write that book, and that book changed my life. So yeah, Lisa, why don't you use your book on a dating site? Is your yeah, because that goes well. Yeah. I don't want to go into that. The dating thing is a whole another thing, especially in COVID, right? Michele, you are always careful about with your boys. Right. I mean, I feel like, I don't have a right to really divulge any of their secrets. I may have talked about them without their permission when they were, children, small children, but I can only write about my reaction to the things that they might do, but I don't have a right to their truths. God forbid they end up writing books and I'm in it. So that's always a motivation. It's like, remember me in a good light. But you don't have rights to anyone else's story or truth. You only have the rights to your own.
Yeah, that was a big surprise for me because when I was an editor in chief, I wrote my editor's letter. And I always, the way I distinguished myself is I said, I'm going to tell the brutal, honest truth about everything in my life. And so my poor husband, who was on Wall Street at the time, we were all commuters, he would get on the train and he would call me at like 9 and go, could you next time just tell me what you're saying? Because I get all these guys giving me the snarky eyeball about what you wrote and I haven't seen it and I don't know what it is. And I had to stop writing about the kids when they got to be older because I realized that's not fair to them.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
Any other questions?
There.
What did your sons think about your COVID essay?
We'll talk about that privately, Lisa. I wrote an essay for HuffPo about Thanksgiving. Yeah, we'll talk about that later.
Is it on there now? Can I go find it?
Sure.
Okay.
Google it. Yeah, it went up before Thanksgiving.
All right. Any last questions?
So I was hoping maybe that I could read an excerpt from
Go
that
for it.
last final chapter, if that's okay with you.
Go for it.
Every July, I call the same plumbing company to schedule someone to come out and clear my drains and pipes from the backyard to the front yard and out to the sewer. They're nice there. Everyone from Robert, whose last name is on the truck, to the woman who takes your number and someone calls right back. They have a female plumber. She's in her 20s. She's nice. One of the young men who comes out on a call to fix a toilet or a sink knows my son Colin and wrestled at the high school. All of my boys did. The plumbing team is polite and prompt and sometimes bills me instead of demanding a check right then and there. If they come in the house, they put on paper booties to save my rugs. I guess customers want that. What they do every July is called root incursion because the tree roots enter the pipes and basically clog it all up. This can be expensive if you let it go too long, and you might have to replace all the sewer pipes. And let me tell you, that is neither cheap nor pretty. It's best to keep your roots under control. Edit them. The big tree in the front of the house is the biggest culprit. I have not edited my roots. Our roots grew here in this house, this red brick colonial. I was blessed to live in it all. We each put down our roots and they grew. Thick, gnarling roots, groping, plunging into each other's tender dirt, mud, and clay. The rainwater helped them spread, sometimes too much, sometimes it flooded. My oldest son, Weldon, has a tattoo on his right shoulder of a tree with colored leaves and flowers the size of a large grapefruit. He got it a few years back. It's a fairy tale tree, more grim than Seuss, with a firm, thick brown trunk and 4 strong branches, each winding boldly across his flesh with scores of full green leaves. The base is supported with roots that are thinner but symmetrical and even, closely connected. I asked him if it hurt. So that's that.
All right.
So I thank you so much, Leslie, and thanks all of you, and thank you, Gloria, for this glorious opportunity for to be part of Take the Leads Book Club discussion this month. I really, really appreciate all of you being here. So you can find Act Like You're Having a Good Time at your local bookstore or on Amazon. And I just want to appreciate all of you. Leslie, would you like to say anything?
Oh, I just want to say thank you for inviting me. It's so wonderful. I'm thing that bums me out is we didn't know each other when we were 10. I can't tell you how that bums me out. But now we do, which is good. So we can play. And I like, just so you know, I just call people out of the blue. I'm done scheduling. So I think that's a great way to stay in touch, especially in this crazy world. Call each other. And thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you. And thank you, Gloria. I appreciate you.
Thank you, Gloria.
Thank you.
Don't forget to buy the book.
Thank you, Leslie.
Bye,
Thank you,
guys.
thank you. Thank you, everybody. Ciao, ciao.
Ciao.